All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back live at the National Medical Association NMA 2024 with Dr. Clive Callendar. I already said your name, but can you tell people your area of specialty, where you're located, where you're from?
I'm Dr. Clive Callendar, transplant surgeon located at Howard University Hospital, College of Medicine. I've been a transplant surgeon since 1971. And so it's been quite a while now, 50 years as a transplant surgeon.
Okay. Transplant surgeon. So in the years, the so many years that you've been a transplant surgeon, man, what have you seen just in the black community? Just can you share some of the things that you've seen?
Well, one of the first things I observed when I came back and started the transplant center, kidney transplant center, and the liver transplant center at Howard University, actually in 1974, was that when we did the first transplants, 80% of the donors were white, and less than 20% of the kidneys that went to our black patients were black. And so it occurred to me that we had a problem that needed addressing and solution. And so actually in 1978, the Southeastern Organ Procurement Foundation came to me and shared some data items to me that were shocking. 70% of the patients on dialysis in the southeastern part of the United States were black, but only 3% of the donors were black. And so this led us to wonder what we could do to become part of the solution to this problem. So as a consequence, when the Southeastern Organ Procurement Foundation informed me that in spite of the need, they had no money to help us with this, we went to Howard University and went to the president and asked for $500. And with that $500, we went into the District of Columbia to try to get an answer to the question, why is it that blacks are so disproportionately affected with kidney disease? And secondly, what can we do to change the data items around so that blacks become part of the solution to the problem? And so out of this study, actually in 1978, we came up with two answers to the question.
Okay.
First, we learned from the people in the District of Columbia why they were reluctant to become donors. And the first reason was they had no idea that blacks needed organs more than any other ethnic group. That was number one. They didn't know that we had more high blood pressure and more diabetes than any other ethnic group. They didn't know that we were greatest in need of people to donate. So that was number one. The second was religious myths and misperceptions, concerns that in that great getting that morning when you go to the pearly gates, if you don't have your eyes, you won't be able to see great mama and grandmama in the hereafter. You won't be able to have your heart and soul. And so we had to remind them that Christ came and died and gave his life.
That's right.
That we might have a second chance at life, and a new life with a new body anew. So we don't need these organs, and we should leave them behind so others might have a second chance at life. And that this is the right thing to do, to leave the organs and tissues in life and after death. So that when you go to the pearly gates, they will greet you and salute you because you were somebody who left organs and tissues behind. The third had to do with concerns that blacks are used too often as guinea pigs, and that this was just another effort to get our black kidneys and give them to white patients. The fourth had to do with the basic concern that if I die and if I get an accident and go to the hospital, that they will be more concerned with getting my organs and tissues than with saving my life. So we had to do many things to correct that myth. And then the fifth one had to do with basic racism, the concern that you just want to get my organs to give them to white people. And so with understanding the 5 reasons why African Americans were reluctant to become donors, we were then able to find out, for example, when we started the surveys, or the 2-hour sessions with Dr. James Baden, who's a psychologist, and his students, we found that 2 out of the 40 people we used for the study were willing to sign donor cards.
Hmm.
But at the end of the 2-hour session, all 40 signed donor cards.
Okay.
We therefore concluded that not only had we identified the reasons, but we also came up with a solution. And with that in mind, we started the DC Organ Donor Program in the District of Columbia and the metropolitan areas thereof. And as a consequence of this, the number of black donors who signed donor cards and who were donors tripled.
Wow.
And so because of this, we said, well, most people say that blacks don't donate, and they will not donate. Lo and behold, what we've done in the black community is to identify that when they're educated and empowered, they will become part of the solution to the problem.
Wow.
And as a consequence, we then were funded by the Dow Chemical Company, who had made Agent Orange, and they needed some positive PR. And they liked our program and said that they would sponsor us going to 26 cities across the United States to spread the message of the need for blacks to participate in organ donation. As a consequence, we were able to found the Dow Chemical Company college program. We went to the 4 historically black colleges, and we went to the communities, 26 cities across the United States. And as a consequence, we started this in 1986. They did a Dow survey in 1985, and then did another one after we finished our work in 1990. And they found that as a consequence of our intervention, the number of blacks who signed donor cards, the number who were now interested in becoming aware, who are now aware of the need, had tripled. So with this in mind, we then said, wow, my goodness, we've proven that blacks, when they're educated and empowered, will become part of the solution to the problem. And so we said, if this works for the black community, who they said would not donate, it would work for all communities. And so we said, let us form the National Minority Organ Tissue Transplant Education Program. And what we did with $16 million that came from National Institutes of Health, because of Lewis Sullivan, Lewis Stokes, and John Ruffin, was to identify 15 sites across the United States where we started programs just like we did for blacks in Latino, Hispanics, Native Americans, Alaskan Natives, and Asian Pacific Islanders. We went to the cities of Hawaii, Alaska, New York, Houston, and so forth. And so as a consequence of this, a kind of a miracle happened. Between the time we started our efforts, conceptualized MOTEC in 1991, got the funds in 1995, we then made a difference that was shocking. And that difference was that as a consequence of our efforts, when we looked at the data, actually in 2010, the number of minorities who donated had doubled. The number of African Americans who donated had tripled. And
wow.
This said to us that this was a mission impossible, that we actually had made possible. And so, and the message that we learned was that when we go to the communities, educate them, and empower them to take the message and make a difference. And so, while we went into the communities, the communities did the work.
Yeah.
We educated and empowered them so that they could do it. And this happened in all of the 15 sites across the United States. So that in 2010, another incredible data item occurred, and that was that the number one ethnic group donating organs in 2010 was African American. The group that was at the bottom had now gotten to the top. And so, in many ways, our mission in terms of identifying a problem in the community that they said blacks wouldn't donate, we were successful there, and then we're successful in all the other ethnic groups as well.
Yes,
And so this is a story that I feel must be told, that yes, when we are educated and empowered, yes, we will become part of the solution to the problem. I think we demonstrated that.
Yes.
And the data is there to look at and see that we made a difference that we felt must be made. I will admit that when I did this starting this, it was because of my religious background, and I felt that we should start the effort in churches, and we did so. And at first it was difficult. But over time, as more blacks and more ministers and other religious people had the need for organs, it became much easier to spread the message as it is today.
Mm-hmm.
And so the moral of the story is that all communities can be educated and empowered to become part of the solution. And the biggest issue is that 12 people die every day because of the shortage of donors. More than 100,000 people are on the waiting list for transplants.
Wow.
And so by donating life and after death, we can make a difference. Some people don't realize that after death you can leave 8 organs behind that can save lives, and leave tissues that could allow the deaf to hear, the blind to see, the lame to walk again. And so this then is the message that I share. And the other message that I share is that what we did in those efforts was to go from awareness, which is the beginning of the process, to go to action and accountability. And so when you made the community aware of the problem, demonstrated the action they needed to do, and held them accountable, they were willing to become part of the solution to the problem. And this is true for all of the ethnic groups that we were able to address.
That is amazing. That is truly amazing. Now, you mentioned it, just being a part of the solution and empowering folks. One thing that our audience sometimes asks about, you see all these dialysis centers popping up, and they're in our community.
Absolutely.
Dr. Callendar, what can we do? What can we do?
We've got to do more of what we did with our MOTEP concept, which is to really let the people in the community know that we are disproportionately afflicted and affected with these diseases because of our predisposition to diabetes, hypertension, and some genetic diseases. A recent action, APOL1, identified a genetic difference between the African American population. That gene stopped sleeping sickness in Africa, but it predisposed to kidney disease in African Americans. And so one of the things that we do, and one of the things that we learned to do in 2001 was to educate the community and let them know that they can become part of the solution to the problem. And sometimes some things that people don't realize. The first sign of kidney disease is protein in the urine. So after the age of 50, all blacks, people of color, and other people of color should have their urine tested for protein. If the urine test is positive, if they have high blood pressure, that must be controlled. If they have diabetes, that must be controlled. If they have neither of those, then they need to get genetic testing to see if they have a genetic disease. So an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So screening, get a simple urine test for protein. And if it's positive, the doctor should not tell you, oh, well, don't worry, we'll watch it. No, they should refer you to a nephrologist so they can follow you and reverse some of these changes that would result in end-stage renal disease, but can be reversed if we can catch it early enough. And that is the message that I like to share, that not only have we done something that increases the number of people who donate, but also we want to decrease the number of people who actually get kidney disease. And so this is one way we can do it. And one of the things we do, actually in the District of Columbia, and we've been on the program that emphasizes how important it is not only to get tested for screening, but then after you get tested and you find you're positive, go to the doctor and prevent yourself from becoming one of those 100,000 people who are waiting for organs because they have end-stage renal disease.
Wow. So when you talk about urine, one of the popular articles that we have is talking about foamy urine. Is that a sign of kidney disease?
That is an important sign of proteinuria, which means that's the first sign of kidney disease.
Wow.
So if you've got foam in your urine, you need to go to the doctor, have them do a urine test. And if there's protein That's a warning sign. Now's the time to act. Before you get end organ failure. And we've identified there's 5 stages of kidney disease. The first 3 stages, when you identify them, they can be reversed. If you let it go past that, then you're going to have to require dialysis or a transplant.
Right. Okay. Okay.
So education is so important.
Yes.
And so, to answer to your question, the important thing is for us to educate and empower the community so that they not only become organ and tissue donors, but they take action to reduce the high incidence of kidney failure in the African American population and the communities of color. Because while we have the highest rate, Latino Americans and Native Americans have very high rates as well.
So you mentioned taking action, and I know one of the things that we can do is take it personally for ourselves and be proactive. So are there some foods that we can possibly eat or drink, partake of, that help with the functioning of the kidney?
Absolutely, there's much we can do. For example, one of the things is drink plenty of water. The other thing is eat as little of meat as you can.
Okay.
Plant proteins are the key to life in many ways. Exercise. Exercising 150 minutes a week to 300 minutes a week is important. Meditating 150 to 300 minutes per week. Those are the essential things. Drink a lot of fluid. Fruits and vegetables. Putting away red meats. These are the things that will help us. The more plant proteins you eat, the less red meat you eat, the better off you are. The more exercise you do, and simple things like walking. Walking for 30 minutes a day, 5 days a week will do it. Of course, getting your blood pressure checked, and if you have high blood pressure, get it controlled. Because that is the number one problem, hypertension and diabetes. Those are the 2 things that are treatable, that when treated well can reduce the incidence of kidney failure.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Dr. Callendar, you've educated us on so much today. Last question. What made you decide to become a physician?
That's a very interesting question, but it goes back to the fact that when I was born, my mother had 2 sons that had died early, before the age of 2. And she got pregnant again, and I prayed for 2 sons. Actually, my twin brother and I, Carl and I, were born, but within 48 hours she died from the complications of delivery. And so we were actually put in foster homes for the first 2 years of our life. And then after my dad married and got a stepmother, she was hospitalized because of mental illness. And that then sent us to my aunt, Ella Waterman, who raised us from that time until 18. And while I was in church, at the age of 7, I heard a sermon that talked about becoming a medical missionary, addressing the souls of mankind and the bodies of mankind. And at the age of 7, I decided I wanted to be a medical missionary. Later on, in spite of the fact that I contracted tuberculosis at the age of 15 and had to have half of my right lung removed because of that, and was in the hospital for 18 months, I was able to overcome that, and here I am 70 years later, alive and healthy. But that is what got me started. Now, while I was in the hospital, 18 months in the hospital, my uncle, Herbie Cave, gave me the medical Merck manual and the American College Dictionary to read. So I read those while I was in the hospital. As a consequence, later on, I had IQ tests that indicated I had what it took. And so in spite of the fact that when I was a college student, I'm embarrassed to say this, I had a 1.5 out of 4 average in my first year, second year, 2 out of 4. In spite of that, and I realized that I needed to grow up and take it seriously. And in spite of all those obstacles, I was able to get into medical school and emerge finally as the #1 student in my class from my college. And then I met a student in my Howard University College of Medicine who was from Africa. And he said they needed a surgical team in Port Harcourt, Nigeria. And this then was my dream come true. So Right after I finished my surgical training, I went to Africa, did surgery in Africa, but I lost 50 pounds. And this then suggested to me that maybe Africa was not where I should spend the rest of my life. And so I came back and as things would happen, I started a transplant. I did my transplant training at the University of Minnesota, went back to Howard, started the transplant program, and that, in short, is kind of how I got into the transplant business. I knew absolutely nothing about transplant until I really went to Howard. Dr. William Mattori taught me how to do transplants in animals, and then I took that experience and became a transplant surgeon, and the rest is history.
Wow, wow. Well, man, Dr. Callendar, you are incredible. You are incredible. It's because of people like you that so many, just people in general and generations, are able to live because of your work that you do. So I just want to just publicly thank you for all the years of hard work that you've done. It's truly remarkable, man. Truly remarkable.
I've truly been blessed by God. I can
Yeah.
say that to you because my whole life I've spent giving thanks to God for my life. I mean, after having my lung removed and all of that, who would have thought that I'd be here 71 years later? And to have a wife and 3 children. I have a wife, Fern, who has made a difference because of, and my 3 children, all those things. I've been so blessed. That's all I can say. Thanks be to God for the miracle that has happened because of and in spite of me.
Yeah. Well, hey, we're blessed. Thank you, Jesus. We're blessed because of you. So you heard it here first, right here at the NMA 2024. Thank y'all for viewing.